I've been trying to take it easy. Take it easy, but still take it. Make it better if I break it. Sometimes that gets hard. If I slip to older ways, with poorer plans of darker days, I need a shoulder or a friend. I hope I see you then. Tell me why you wanna go. I've tried to let it show. I've been to the bottom and back so many times that I simply lost track. And I think I've hit my limit. This time. Well, I think I hit my limit. Think I hit my limit this time.
A good day to you on this Wednesday, May 19th. Ryan Jesperson here. It is Real Talk, and we thank you for finding us. This show is presented by the team at Bitcoin Well. It's relatively early in the day as we do this show here live, regardless of when you're catching us. You may be in the same boat as me. My personal phone is going nuts. The chatter this morning between a couple group texts that we maintain. All the boys are trying to figure out Bitcoin right now. And everybody's got their own theories on what's going on. When I want to sound like I know what I'm talking about, when I want to sound like I understand crypto, I just reach out to Adam and his team at Bitcoin. Well, that's what I do. So I know what I'm talking about, or at least it sounds like I do. Adam's going to be on the show on Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. Right out of the gates, we're going to talk about, honestly, does Elon Musk control the fate of crypto, or can people have more confidence in it than that? In the meantime, you can check out Bitcoin Well under the sponsors tab at ryanjesperson.com.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
In about 10 minutes, we're going to speak with the mayor of a BC, a British Columbia community that's experiencing tree poaching. This is actually a thing. Forestry experts and officials around North Cowichan are saying that people are literally sneaking in or gaining access into certain forest areas to illegally harvest firs. And hang on a second, furs? It feels like moose. The plural of fur should still be fur, or is it furs? Sam, do you know?
Because, if you're talking about, pelts, you say furs. If somebody has a collection of nice coats, they have furs.
Okay, interesting.
So
yeah.
I think it's got I think I'm going to go with that. Sarah's looking it up
I want to, in the spirit of bar trivia, I mentioned Monday Night Football trivia the other night and how I think it's been bastardized and ruined because everybody has their phones now. I have not checked my phone nor Googled. However, the producer of this show, the esteemed Sarah Hoyles, has done a fact check.
Oh, boy. Yes, it's true. You can use furs.
Furs.
Yeah.
Okay. And
you could say fir trees.
For trees.
But you could also, shorten things down to furs.
But if you want to sound like, and by the way, Sherry the cherry tree looking absolutely magnificent right now. It's a little early to launch into our plug for Eden Landscaping this morning. But let me just say, thank God for the wisdom of people who said it's a little early to put Sherry in the ground. Thank God for the wisdom and the gardening knowledge of the people that suggested that still a May snowfall could come, as we have seen in our home city of Edmonton, Alberta. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from around the world, correct me if I'm wrong, snap me into place if I'm exaggerating, but there's approximately, and I'm going to go with American terms because it always sounds cooler, there's approximately 1 to 2 inches of fresh snowfall on the ground this morning, correct?
Sure. I mean,
You sound like you're not totally on board with where I'm going. This is a self-congratulatory exercise.
No, I just the measurements again.
Should we say 2 to 3 centimeters?
That I can get my head around, but I'm not really.
You seriously cannot picture 2 inches?
2 inches sounds quite a bit more than a couple of centimeters to me.
Yeah, well, technically it's approximately 2, almost bang on, right? 2.2, I think.
Yeah,
isn't it?
about
2.2 centimeters
Really?
in an inch, approximately.
Oh, now I sound
Ish.
real smart.
But here's
here.
what you need to do. I usually go approximately 2 centimeters to an inch. It's approximately 3 feet to a meter. It's approximately 60 miles an hour to 100 kilometers an hour, right? Ish, approximately.
Ish, yeah.
Ish, ish.
Well, I was going to say, going to engineering school in Canada in the time that I went there, so like from 2007 on, you have to learn both systems. Like you're thrown, and actually you're thrown equations where you get mixed stuff. You get a bunch of stuff in SI and a bunch of stuff in metric, and you have to pick one and convert the other stuff.
But they're probably just chill, right? So when you're engineering, you probably just say you're like ish. It's like 2 to 1 ish.
Yeah, ish,
and then they say, Samuel Brooks, have you turned in your assignment on building the bridge to span these two? And you say, yeah, it's like ish. It's like 150, ish, 150 ish meters, give or take. And then people go, yeah, cool. And then everyone just shows up and turns their wrenches, and then they build it.
Yep, that's how it works.
That's pretty much how it goes. But thank God that Sherry was not in the ground, because this snowfall could have been devastating. So I'm just so grateful that the wisdom that we had
from Eden Landscaping.
I mean, I just want to take most of the credit for our team, but yes, it was from Eden Landscaping. You're right. They actually reached out last night and said, you didn't put Sherry in the ground yet, did you? I said, no. Happy to report she's still thriving in the studio.
Well, I mean, the general wisdom that I've always heard is do not plant before May Long Weekend. And May Long Weekend's coming up this week. And no spring is complete without the freak snowfall.
Yeah, depending on where you live, right? I mean, we have friends joining us from places that we don't even want to hear from them right now. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
Right? They're waking up to the sound of macaws, and they've got sand between their toes, and it's quite frankly, it's annoying is what it is. Although we do appreciate your correspondence, so thank you for that. I had 2 separate conversations over the weekend with 2 separate friends. One of them by the name of Jeff. He's an agricultural producer, and he was talking about the controversy. If farmers were able to get together, at the local coffee shop and hang out. I mean, everybody's waiting for that to return as an option. But if some of the debate would be around, did you see who's seeding already? Boy, does he have some intel? Because the farmers, they take great pride, and it's the whole idea behind. And people are going to roll their eyes right now, and the farmers are going to roll their eyes. But like the Farmer's Almanac,
I'm going to say the Farmer's Almanac.
Idea being like farmers need to be able to predict the weather, predict the future, at least have some insight. Sort of do the thing where you like lick your finger and hold it up to the wind, and yeah, that feels like snow next week. One of those kind of things. So the farmers that have seeded already, you wonder right now if they're kind of going, oh boy, because they had a bit of a head start on it, right? You never know. And then my pal Heather, talking to her over the weekend, we're walking the dog, walk past her place, always a showcase. It's always looking great. Always looking great. Best Christmas lights in the entire neighborhood by a mile, by 1.6 kilometers. The best Christmas lights you've ever seen. But her planters are out. Like her house looks fabulous. I know. And so Sam, she's saying to me, she says, she goes, I know. She says, like, one of the neighbors, she was kind of joking. I don't want to get Heather in trouble with her neighbor in case her neighbor listens to the show. I should have said Heather, not her real name. So my pal Glenda.
Perfect.
I'm talking to Glenda about her planters. Yeah. And so Heather says to me, she says, quite honestly, I think I might be running some planters back in under some cover, running them back into a heated scenario. They knew that. That's the risk you take in May. What are you going to do? So to get back to the real story, remember this all started with whether or not fur could be plural or not. Probably don't have to tell you if you've been building anything or you've been looking to build something that lumber costs of building materials. And before I even go into this, I'd rather have the audience school us on this than us try to school the audience, because you know better than us. You're the ones that are building your new home, or you're the ones that are adding on, adding a second level to your garage to make, the mother-in-law suite type idea. You're the ones looking to build the new deck, or, to build Sally, or no, I just say Sarah because she's big into it, her first quarter pipe, her first skateboard ramp, whatever you're trying to do, if it's involved 2x4s or plywood or whatever. Sam, you're always constructing. You're always getting into stuff. Have you noticed this firsthand? Somebody was telling me like 2x4s are like $15 now, or like $20.
That's maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but a couple weeks
From
ago, when I was
me?
working on my basement, I was paying about $8 a 2x4.
And what would be normal? $2?
$2, yeah, like
Okay,
2 or 3.
So a 400% increase.
Oh yeah.
But see, what I did there is we put it out on a show like Real Talk, which obviously has a massive international audience. And now people are thinking that 2x4s are $15, which means that if we've stockpiled them at $8 and we put them on Kijiji for $10, you see how all this works? Just kidding. It's a show based on integrity. It's a show built on the bedrock of trust. We would never do that to you. But seriously, building costs are out of control, including wood. And it means that people are literally taking down, they're sawing down firs, cedars, maples, big ones, small ones, softwood, hardwood. It's a huge issue. Al Siebring's the mayor of North Cowichan and kind enough to join us this morning. Your worship, first of all, have I correctly pronounced the name of the beautiful area where you serve the people as a public servant? You do say North Cowichan, is that correct?
Yes, we do, sir. Cowichan comes from a Coast Salish word, Cowichan, which means land warmed by the sun. We have the warmest mean temperature of any place in Canada, and we're proud of that.
Okay, so
yes.
you're one of these people that's going to annoy us because we've woken up to a blanket of snow and everybody's panicking in our neck of the woods about the flowers, and you're probably going to tell me it's like a tropical, it's like a rainforest out. What's it like for you out there this morning?
Dude, in February, I post pictures of myself mowing my lawn.
Oh, come on. Come on. And everybody talks about, I always hear about the Cowichan Valley. Is that near to you?
Yes, that's us. The Cowichan Valley is an area, I don't know, about 30 miles north to south and about 15 miles east to west. The Cowichan River is the mainstay. It's a Canadian heritage river. And North Cowichan is the oldest municipality in this region. In fact, I think we're the third oldest municipality in BC, incorporated in 1873, I believe.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that a guy that had a celebrated 40-year broadcast career can do a fabulous job telling the story of the beautiful part of the country where he lives and painting a picture. Mayor, can you continue on and give us a sense of the type of topography, the type of landscape we're talking about? When we're talking about people lopping down trees, it's not like some back 40 in the middle of nowhere where nobody's going to miss them. Paint some perspective for us, would you?
Well, it's a valley, and that infers that there's mountains, right? And a lot of the mountainsides around my part of the valley, we have 6 mountains here. I'm not going to name them all off because I'll forget one. But the sides of those mountains are forested. They have been logged, pretty much all of them were logged about 120 years ago. And you have to go back in some history there. Back in those days, the forest companies, there was no tree farm licenses. There wasn't really crown land. We have a complication here of a land grant to get a railway built on the island. But in any event, the forest companies bought this land, logged it clear, and I mean, true clear cutting 100 years ago. And then they walked away, and they didn't pay their property taxes on the land they owned to the municipality, which was already extant then. So at the end of the day, the municipality ended up owning that land. They got it all on tax sale. And it's a considerable chunk of land. It's 25% of our land base as a municipality. It's about 5,000 hectares, and it's what we call our municipal forest reserve. Now, in the course of that 100 years, those trees have grown back. And, if you look at it now, it's pristine, it's beautiful. There's a few areas that we've logged because we, and by we, I mean previous councils in their wisdom said, we're going to set up a forestry program in the municipality. I believe we're the only municipality in Canada, probably in North America, that has this. We have a standalone department. We have a forester. We have some staff that look after it. we log sustainably, and by that I mean we keep logging forever. It would be like you having 20 trees in your backyard and saying, I'm going to take out one tree every 6 years. So 120 years later, you come back to that first tree, it's, you replant and something's grown there. That's the forestry model that we have followed. We are in the middle of a discussion now about whether we want to do that. Part of the thing with the forest is it's a lot of recreational trails in there. The maintenance of those trails and all that stuff is paid for by forestry revenues. But there's some pressure in community that says, you know what, we should just stop the logging and turn it all into park. And there's some issues with that. But the point being, we're having a discussion about whether we even want to continue logging, and we've paused doing that in the meantime. Then along comes January, and we find that people are up in the bush there, cutting down trees and pulling them out of there. Initially, it looked like it was for firewood, and you can kind of tell. I mean, if a tree comes down and there's every 16 or 18 inches, there's a little pile of sawdust.
Right.
You can tell they cut it into 16-inch rounds. So, we kind of raised the alarm bells about that and said, stop, don't do it. Called the RCMP. They have an active file. And then a little while later, we discovered more trees coming down in other parts of our municipal forest. And these weren't 16-inch firewood rounds. These looked to be 8 and 10-inch logs, which are then thrown on the back of a truck and hauled out of there. And if you know anything about, how that works.
I don't actually. Can you? Most of us probably have no idea how it works.
Well, I mean, an 8 to 10 foot log gets hauled to a mill and becomes an 8 or 10 foot 2x4 or 2x6. You can't do that with the 16-inch rounds, but you can do that with the big long pieces. So That's what we started noticing, was that there were bigger pieces. I mean, it's same notion. They're cutting down our trees, but they were bigger pieces that were being taken out. So, and I mean, there's rules and regulations around this. If you take lumber to a registered mill, like the people who make the plywood and the 2x4s that most people buy at Home Depot, that stuff has to be, ethically sourced, and you have to be able to show where you got it, and you got a license for it and everything else. But there's a lot of backyard mills, a lot of people that just mill lumber for a variety of things. The house I live in, the house I'm speaking to you from here, my siding is all Douglas fir siding milled from trees on this very property. It's that live edge siding. It looks really cool. But so, that's to say there are other ways to process this lumber rather than going through the big legitimate Western Forest Products or Weyerhaeuser or whoever lumber mills. So we suspect that's what's going on. And the background here, we normally, pre-COVID at least, we would hand out firewood permits. We'd sell them, I think, $20, get you a cord. You have to go get your own firewood. And, that was a fairly decent model, because the idea was where we log, there's always some leftovers, some trees that are, too small for lumber, or they're a little punky or whatever. And people could go in and clean that up for us so we wouldn't have to. That was great. That was nice. But we haven't issued any firewood permits since the start of COVID, because we're just not doing it right now. But people are going in and taking it anyway. And this is not just the deadfall. This is not just the stuff that's left over from logging. They're cutting down real, live, big trees. And, if you know anything about West Coast forest, I'm not talking, old growth that are, 6 people to get around them, but these are 80 to 100-year-old trees, and they're certainly valuable for lumber.
This has really nothing to do with anything, but just an anecdotal observation. I remember hiking the West Coast Trail and talking to someone there with a ton of experience. We later read the book. I was reading in Blisters and Bliss, the guidebook there, and it proves to be true that the absolute oldest trees on that entire, approximately 80-kilometer journey are like 6 to 10 feet tall. They're these like little evergreen trees that people say they're older than the most massive ones that you can see. All it did to me, to a city slicker, was reiterate you can't always sort of at first glance understand the dynamic of a forest or maybe the value of what you're taking down, Oh,
fair enough. Yeah.
So how much of an issue is this? Like, frankly, as the mayor, how pissed off are you 1 to 10?
Here's the thing. We haven't even decided we want to log, and people are coming in and stealing our stuff. Stop it.
Is that a 10 out of 10? Is that your version of 10 out of 10?
Probably a 9.5.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, it's, it's never good when people steal your stuff. But it's particularly annoying right now because we're trying to determine whether we even want to cut any more trees. I mean, council's in the middle of a huge public engagement on that. We've put a pause on all that stuff, and all of a sudden, bang, here we go. Our trees are going missing. And, to put it in perspective, it's not like they're stripping the forests bare. They're going into places where generally it's not that visible from the logging roads because they want to hide what they're doing. And, it's not like there's big patches of clear cut on the side of the mountain because they're doing this stuff. But equally, it's, this is an asset that belongs to the taxpayers of North Cowichan, and it's an asset that over the last 60 or 70 years we've been turning into monetary value that keeps property taxes down. We're looking at whether we want to continue that model, but in the meantime, leave the asset alone because, damn it, it's our asset.
This is not justification in any way, but you know how this goes. You strike me to be kind of a salt of the earth, pretty reasonable guy, even keel guy. People are going to say, number one, there's a million trees out here. Number two, don't tell me about sustainability. But it sounds to me like a lot of these people have some, I don't want to start pointing fingers, obviously, but like it sounds to me like some folks probably have some form of logging experience. I mean, if they're milling lumber in their own yards, they have some idea of what they're doing. They're probably going to say, COVID's been tough on us. The one thing we can do is have fires in our backyard. We need firewood, and dang it, we've lost, half of us have lost our jobs, or it's been a tough year economically. So the one joy we're going to have is to be able to build a deck. But all of a sudden, that deck that was supposed to cost me $400 is going to cost me $2,000 now, and I can't afford it. I mean, these are the types of things people are probably, I would imagine, the internal dialogue to justify this type of action, wouldn't you think?
I'm sure there's some of that, but you have to also put it in context that if you want to build a deck out of lumber, you don't do it out of fresh milled trees, and if you want to use firewood, you don't want to do that out of fresh cut trees. That shit's got to sit in the cure for a year and a half before you can burn it. So, I get the argument. And I even have some sympathy for it in the context of at least the firewood, because I know there are people in this community that use that use wood for primary heat, and they need firewood. But this is not the way to go about it.
So hang on a second, though, Mayor. So if you don't, I know about the firewood stuff. Obviously you'd be looking for probably freestanding deadfall if you want to get great firewood. But I did not know. You're teaching me here. I did not know. I don't know anything about lumber. I don't know anything about milling it. I don't know anything about. I've never built a deck, quite frankly. Nobody wants me around a circular saw. But so where do you think this is going then? What's your speculation?
I'm just saying it's not a case of we're going to take this lumber and mill it and build a deck, because you got to kiln dry it first, otherwise it gets all warped. But there are other uses for the lumber that could be milled, like the siding on my house.
Got it. Okay. Do you think there's a black market? Like are there trailers? Or tarped up trucks that are heading in and out of North Cowichan with black market lumber on them? Do you think?
That's probably a stretch. I don't think we've lost enough trees to support what you call a black market. It may well, however, be a case of somebody saying, I need some lumber for a project that doesn't have to be kiln dried. And I talked to my buddy who has the backyard mill, and he talks to his buddy who goes and finds some trees and knocks them down. I mean, it's a minuscule black market if it's there, but it's not a large scale, as you say, trucks rolling in and out of North Cowichan with tarp over and hiding our lumber. So no.
So this is it's clearly a matter of principle, number one, and number two, the conversation around sustainability is important. It's always fascinating. We're gonna feature Jasper National Park in just a moment, and it's always fascinating to talk to people about how regions are valued, and a lot of them are based on infrastructure, and a lot of them are based on the fact that much of what it looked like 1,000 years ago is still reflected now. What would you say, or how would you peg the value of the forest or the land around North Cowichan as is? Would you say it's gaining in value based on people's perceptions, things like tourism, et cetera?
COVID has really brought out the value, as you put it, of these outdoor recreation areas. One of our challenges in COVID, and this isn't really forestry related, but it is. I told you earlier, we have recreational trails. We have some of the best mountain biking in the world right here. In fact, there's a thing called the BC Bike Race, which I think there were 12 or 13 destinations around the province. And there's mountain bikers from all over the world who participate in that thing. They didn't hold it last year because of COVID, and I don't think they will this year. But Whistler used to be the anchor for the BC Bike Race. Whistler was the standard, the gold standard for mountain biking. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, they said, sorry, Whistler's no longer the gold standard. North Cowichan is. We have those bike trails. And what's happened during COVID, because remember, these forests are adjacent to residential areas. We're not a compact community, but we have a lot of interface between residential and forestry. And we've tried to build some infrastructure and some parking lots and stuff to service the people who use these trails for the mountain biking and the recreation. But that has become a problem during COVID because there's been a lot of folks that have taken up mountain biking. We've had a lot of folks from Victoria who've discovered our trails and come up. And now we're getting people who live in the neighborhoods complaining to us because of all the traffic and everything that is tied to the recreational use of the forest. So, that's been a spin-off. You talk about the value. Council's being lobbied quite heavily right now from the folks who want us to stop all logging, who say, you know what, just don't make it a carbon sink, do something else, stop the logging, because, and I'm seeing this frequently, I want to preserve the forests and make sure that my kids have these trails to walk on, or my grandkids when they grow up. And I get that, but my response to them is, you know what, your grandparents were probably saying the same thing 120 years ago when all these mountains were clear cut. And guess what? Today, their grandkids, have trails to walk on. And we've done a much better job in the last 60 or 80 years of doing the logging sustainably to make sure there will always be trails to walk on and there will always be forest because we've been doing it right. You can infer from what I'm saying where I come down on the question of whether to log or turn it into parkland, but that's a political position. But the fact is that we totally recognize the value of these forests, both in terms of recreation, in terms of ecosystems, and in terms of dollar value of harvesting. And we try to balance all of those values in a way that recognizes the people who want trails for their grandkids, and that recognizes the fact that forestry revenue can keep our property taxes down, and in a way that recognizes that there are some sensitive ecosystems there that we need to work around and preserve and work with. So there's a lot of stuff at play when you talk about value. No kidding.
I'm so grateful. My mind is wandering as you're talking, as I'm realizing that you and I are having from our different vantage points, in both of us in Western Canada are having almost, or experiencing or witnessing almost identically themed conversations about completely different industries. You're talking about logging companies that walked away from leases and left municipalities without property tax payments. Talk to municipalities in Alberta right now about oil and gas companies and what a hole that blew in their bottom line. The only difference is 100 years. The only difference is we're talking about the now for property taxes. The provincial government, I'm not sure if you're aware, Mayor, has given oil and gas companies holidays on their property tax payments, and it's killed the municipalities. And then talking about sustainability as well, same sort of thing. And I'll hand the mic over to you. But you talk to a lot of people right now, and everybody understands the need about the conversation around new energy markets and sustainability and environmental. Everybody gets that. But at the same time, people also go, entire communities have been sustained by this activity for the last 70 years. And how do we manage that transition? It's fascinating to hear you having the same conversation about a completely different industry.
I would only say the only difference between your abandoned wells and our abandoned forests is at the end of the day, we ended up owning the forests. That's not an option for your municipalities. Not that I necessarily think they would want it to be either, but at least when we inherited the forest and the trees grew back, there was some monetary value there. So.
Yeah. That's a great point. So Mayor, where does this ultimately go from here? Is this the RCMP's problem? Is this something where, I mean, you're obviously doing advocacy here. You are talking to our audience. What next?
Well, I mean, we are continuing to monitor for illegal activities. The RCMP are involved. We have bylaw services. We've beefed that up. We now have weekend patrols in the bush. We never did that before. Council is also going to be reviewing some of the fines associated with our forest use bylaw, just to make sure that, you know, the fines sort of match the crime.
They're huge, aren't they? Did I see $1 million?
No, I don't think you
did. I was reading up on this somewhere. I saw some reporting that said a maximum fine of $1 million. Oh, here it is. The Forest and Range Practices Act. Maybe that's federal legislation. Destroying crown timber, fines of up to $1 million, 3 years in prison, or both. Can you? I mean, geez.
Yeah, no, that's and our lands aren't covered by that because it's you know, just fee simple private lands, so it's not really covered under that. That's for federal crown land, which
got it.
The whole other thing. I don't know whether we'll go to $1 million, but we're certainly going to look at, you know, whether these fines are appropriate, because they haven't been reviewed in quite some time. And then, you know, we're looking at maybe putting some wildlife cams up there, some video surveillance, so we can catch people in the act. All of that costs money and takes time, and you know, we also have to be accountable to the taxpayers in terms of, you know, what's the ROI on this? How much money do we spend to save a few trees? And I'm not minimizing the value of the trees, but what's the balance, right? So
I don't know why I'm envisioning. My mind goes to weird and twisted places as we have live conversations here on this show, and I'm just thinking more. It's like advocacy, like sort of a Bob and Doug McKenzie, like a quintessential Canadian, like, hey, like, quit cutting down the trees, you hosers. Like, you know, just
you
more.
Really should do that one, right?
I think that's maybe more. You know, you talk to police all the time about education over enforcement. Maybe that's it. Mayor, in all seriousness, you know, wish you well with this, and I'm just grateful we had a chance to connect. You and I have never spoken before. I look forward to talking again.
Appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's His Worship Al Siebring. He's the mayor of North Cowichan. What a fascinating story. I've been paying attention, of course, as we always do, to our live chat and some of the Sarah, you and I were talking ahead of time and going, and yesterday I'm going, should we like price out lumber? Should we know? And I said, you know what, anecdotally, people are going to be sharing with us, and they are, which is so great. I mean, people are telling us, like, Allison paid $9.83 for a 2x8, which is wild. Others are reporting that I've heard this, that plywood is $100 a sheet right now. $100 a sheet. We had last summer a small gathering at our house for my little guy's birthday, and it had been raining for a couple of days, and we've got some drainage issues because the team at Eden Landscaping hadn't yet taken a look, and it was just sort of like in a crisis management. It was like an emergency management mode. Kid's birthday party, people going to be running around, and it's an absolute slop pit back there. And I had 4 sheets of plywood, which I laid down over the areas to make it walkable. It wasn't aesthetically as pleasing as I would have liked. Now to think of that as a $400 solution for a birthday party, I mean, that's one example of one person's experience. But that's not. I mean, how are people building garden sheds? Chad told us his parents just spent $5,000 on lumber alone to build the bones of their new personal greenhouse.
I mean, you look at construction sites and, yeah, they would use, like you said, plywood on the ground for people to walk through, walk over, and those are now going missing. I also I need to build a garage. Not me personally. I'll get somebody to do that. But I need a garage at my place. And last fall, I got it priced out. And the contractor even then said, hey, lumber prices are high.
Yeah.
You may not want to make a move on this until next year. Well, geez, I really should have done it last year.
Although, you know what? Some real talkers are reporting that the cost is actually coming down. They're saying that, where was it? A couple of people had said that it's actually like sort of a supply and demand type situation.
Yep.
You're seeing lumber coming down a little bit. Crazy Fast Eddie says lumber be like Bitcoin in a month. You might be right. You might be right.
I mean, there's a variety. Just doing the research on this piece, just looking at how there's so many different factors that are a part of why the prices are where they are and kind of how it's shifting. So it has to do with, I mean, maybe I'm getting a little too technical, but the idea that there was, because of the pine beetle, there's actual like supply of wood is diminished, as well as fires, as well as like weather factors. And then you factor in COVID, where workers aren't able to come in and actually do the work. I mean, it just piles on piles on piles on piles on piles.
And we haven't even mentioned the impact of, I mean, under the previous American president, I mean, some of the tariffs and some of the trade impacts, and softwood was really, I mean, a lot of, you talk to people in certain industries that were affected more than others. I think back to the year I spent in college in England, and I always double clutch before I say aluminum. It was you had to wrap your mind around aluminium, which is just such a cooler way to say it. But and softwood and canola. I mean, these are three of the big ones, and I'm sure that there were others that I'm skipping. But yeah, so there's been a lot of impact here on this market from a lot of different angles. People say, Wigwith says this is likely industry guys who work in a mill. That's the thing. Mayor, you can tell he's not wanting to point fingers. There's probably signs, I would imagine, investigators going, it's pretty clear that this is the work of someone who knows what they're doing. Actually what the person probably wants to do is do the nice clean cut. And then once they're done, kind of mess up and hack up the stump to make it look like it's somebody that didn't know what they were doing.
Super amateur. Yeah.
Super amateur hour.
Yeah.
Right? Like leave like a loose, rusty chain on the ground. Like, this sputtering old saw. Meantime, Buddy's got his big steel. Like, anyway, I can't. My mechanic, I won't get too off track because the show's got to move quick today. We've got a great show in store, but I just have to say my mechanic is a competitive. He's a timber sport competitor, and if he's listening right now, I mean, he's just a beauty. Wayne Paulson, you can check him up. He's in the calendars and everything. Big beefy guy with biceps like my thighs. He's one of these kind of guys. He runs saws. Sam, I don't know why I feel like you're going to appreciate this, but he runs.
I'm a fan of anything to do with saws.
He runs saws powered by dirt bike motors. Not a joke. He fires it up. He's got like 250cc saws, and he's fired them up in his shop before, and they're just like bing, ding, 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 like these things. I told him, I said, I got a chainsaw for Christmas one year. Santa was really generous, and I was super excited about it. And Wayne insists on referring to my saw as a garden saw. I showed him
gutless.
I showed him. I was
saw.
So excited because it's like it's got the like 17-inch blade and all this that like and he goes he wrote me back and he was being nice. He said, "Oh, that's a nice garden saw." What's like for like trimming rhubarb or something like. Anyway, I'm just saying. People that know their way around a saw, their work, their handiwork, or their poaching is probably quite evident. This is a very interesting opportunity to transition into this next segment, isn't it? Every Wednesday, speaking of building, speaking of synergy with nature, speaking of sustainability in a century or more of history, every Wednesday, in partnership with our friends at Tourism Jasper, we present MyJasper Memories. And today we're taking a look at how Jasper became the cabin capital of Canada. Why is Jasper so obsessed with cabins? I'm going to show you a website in just a second, but the history here, I mean, this is incredible. When you think of the Jasper cabin experience, I don't know about you, I've stayed in several different ones at several different price points, several different sizes with a number of different groups, number of different locations. Regardless, they are quintessentially Canadian. Jasper's cabins are known for pairing heritage aesthetic with modern comforts, and that long-standing culture has without a doubt established Jasper as the cabin capital of Canada. There are more than 500 individual cabins to rent across the national park. We're showing you a whole bunch of different ones here from a whole bunch of different locations. You can check them all out yourself. If you just check out jasper.travel, they've got some absolutely excellent. Look at these resources like this. 11 unique cabins to rent when visiting Jasper National Park. That's again at jasper.travel. And you can check out, by the way, jasper.travel/real talk for more details on that. But the history of this, did you know that Jasper was actually named after Jasper Hawse, Hawse, the surname, who in the early 1800s, we're talking like almost 200 years ago, more than 200 years ago, operated a cabin that served as a trading post. And of course, it's gone on to establish just a beautiful, wonderful tradition. I love the archive photos that show how these things were hand-built over the years, including, in my mind, I mean, we're seeing the evolution of what has become really, I think, there they are on the property of Jasper Park Lodge. I think iconic images representative of this entire area, this pocket of the Rocky Mountains. Our family, just right before COVID hit, we didn't know what was coming. We had no idea what was coming. Took my parents out to the Jasper Park Lodge and stayed at those ridgeline cabins. And I can tell you, you've got the fire going. You can see like a century's worth of craftsmanship, but all the modern amenities too. And there's something that happens to your soul when you're out there in the national park, looking back on the moonlight hitting those dramatic roof lines, and of course the silhouettes of those phenomenal trees. Absolutely beautiful. Want to give you a bit of an insider tip, with apologies to the locals for leaking this. If you've seen the On the Pine bungalows, it's a cabin property next to the Athabasca River, is the Kumama Bistro. If you're able to get out there, they have a heated patio, brand new chef, and they're serving up incredible Alberta favorites like the braised bison pasta. Again, you can learn more about the cabins at jasper.travel. And don't forget, for more on our partnership, you can check out jasper.travel/real talk. We'd love to hear your version of MyJasper Memories. Just share with us on Instagram, Twitter, using the hashtag MyJasper and RealTalkRJ. Last week, how much fun were we having combing through people's responses, their own Jasper memories? We got 10 or 15 of them right out of the gates, people sharing their own personal family photos. Reiterated to me what a special place that is for so many people.
Yeah, and also on the chat, we're seeing a lot of that as well. People talking about, well, A, that they need to build a cabin, but also that, they've got great memories there at Marmot Basin. And yeah, that some even family members were born there.
Look at this. James says, my mom was born in Jasper. My grandfather was head ranger at the entrance. How cool is that? Brenda says, I just love Jasper. I miss not being there. I know, Brenda. I can't wait to get back out in that neck of the woods. Lauren says, I'd love to go to Jasper Dark Nights. That's a special. Okay, Brenda's demanding a Real Talk retreat in Jasper. Let me just say this. Sure. Okay. No, that is going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen.
I'm just writing up a contract right here.
We've
Could
got
we just,
so many.
could I get you to sign that?
I'll say so many things on the record that we do have intentions. We're doing the Real Talk Cross Canada, the Real Talk road trip. That's happening at some point. Yesterday, we've come up with plans for a dance event that I think is probably going to draw thousands of people, which is still to come. We've got parking lot parties to hold. We have all kinds of Jasper getaways, so it's going to be unbelievable. This is a hard swerve. I don't know the segue here. I don't know how I'm segueing to emojis.
Well, what emoji would you use for all those parties?
For all the parties?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd probably need you'd need the cheersing beers. Mm-hmm. You'd need the
champagne bottle?
Maybe the champagne bottle, although people might have unrealistic expectations there.
Okay.
Unless we're sort of implying, because emojis are all about storytelling, aren't they? So we might say, like, have the popping champagne bottle and then the old school microphone, and then maybe people would realize we're calling ourselves, the champagne of podcasts, for example. So
and then we'd have the crown for you as the Prince of podcasting.
The Prince of podcasting, and then all sorts of ideas. There probably people would be excited about the party, so they'd be tweeting or posting eggplants at us, and we wouldn't understand what was going on there. We'd be trying to figure that out. They used to be called emoticons, and now they're emojis, and they're evolving in really neat ways, actually, that are far from surface level. They're far from the shallow end of the pool. These aren't just kids, that have lost the art of communication or the art of conversation by using emojis. I mean, let me get to this. Sam, if we can just, before we get to our esteemed guest here, I wanted to share this tweet. And Real Talkers, I'd love for you, whether you're tuning in live right now or catching this later, hit me up. What's your favorite emoji? I shared some of my favorite ones. I love the microphone. I love the T-Rex. My little guy Wyatt loves that one. I love the mushrooms, the pure fire, the fist pound, the snowboarding, of course, the red light. Edmonton Oilers tonight about to light up the Winnipeg Jets. That red light, I'm going to be tweeting that red light a whole bunch tonight, I hope. But we've asked you, what's your favorite emoji? And here's what some of you are telling us. And Donna, Power Watcher, is sharing like she loves the clapping. She loves the thumbs up. She loves the heart. Shalane loves the like face palm. Oh my gosh. She says, I'm the face palm person. My kids love the classic poop emoji. How about this? Eric, who uses the steaming coffee mug emoji, shows off his brand new Real Talk mug. He says, by far the most robust mug I own. Thanks, pal. We love our mugs like we love our podcasts. Hot and strong. What? But this one from Dan. Dan responded, and I said, what's your favorite emoji? Dan says, none. They have reduced communication to a slightly more primitive form. Words have more meaning and more intention. I don't know. Marcel Danesi is a linguistics professor at the University of Toronto. Professor, thank you for making time for us this morning, and welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you. It's a real privilege to be here. Thank you.
Is it true, emojis, the art of sort of like the visual, using these icons or these symbols, these logos, have they reduced communication to a more primitive form? Have they, if I can say, bastardized our communication?
No, not at all. Actually, they've retrieved an ancient form of visual cognition. Sorry for this academic terminology.
This is why you're here.
Okay, that we had lost and separated from writing and language. We call it art. So people involved in art say, well, that's not language. Well, it is. You mentioned the word that emoji form a narrative at the beginning. I was listening in. Well, it's true. If you go to the medieval churches and look at the walls, what you've got are really artistic emojis. People understand that, grasp the meaning visually much more quickly than they do by, deciphering, decoding words put together. Now, you're the one who said that we've lost, the ability to think. What probably that person is referring to is that in print culture, in the age that Marshall McLuhan called the Gutenberg galaxy, our eyes had become accustomed to seeing alphabetic forms. And those they represent sounds. They are really sounds represented symbolically in forms of letters. So our brain processes the sounds, phonemic. We call it phonetic training for children. In fact, it's very hard for children to learn how to read alphabetically. That's why we put images next to them so that they can guide the decipherment of the alphabetic code. What emoji has done has connected the two. Now, this is not new. I'm amazed at how when things come out, we always think that, we are the inventors. Never before in history has this happened. Well, it has. First of all, pictography itself is older than alphabetic writing. And in fact, there is an evolutionary link between alphabets and letters. I don't know if you can see my hand. This was the pictograph for an ox, Aleph. Turn it on its head and you get the letter A. That's what I mean by an evolutionary link between figures, pictographs, and alphabetic characters. But our eyes no longer see the pictography in alphabets. So what emojis have done is reactivated that part of our brain, which it's probably the right hemisphere, to connect with the left hemisphere to produce a hybrid language that is highly effective, emotive, but I must put a proviso to this, a caveat. It is informal. I'm not sure it'll ever go into the formal register. Why? Not because the formal register doesn't use visualization. It does. I mean, science is filled with diagrams, charts, and anecdotal aspects that are visual so that we can understand the content. So they already have it. It's already been there. It's in everyday writing. And for me, as someone who studies, culture and its shifts, it really brings about how much writing and language documents shifts, paradigmatic shifts in culture related to technology. Without the technology behind it, Nobody would take the time to draw figures in their writing. What Unicode and other systems have made available is I can select it. That selection makes it much more efficient and easily used to embed in the alphabetic message, reinforcing it powerfully. Now, I have a proviso as well. I do not use emoji. I write about them.
I was about to ask you which one was your favorite.
I don't use. Let me tell you. Can I tell you how this all started?
Of course.
Okay. I'm a professor of linguistics at the University of Toronto, anthropological linguistics. And one day in class, I'm on the verge of retirement, so I'm using it in the past. So anyhow, I had a very large class of 500 students for this linguistics course. So one day I was talking about alphabets and also pictography and comparing the two. A student raises her hand and says, "But Professor, do you know anything about emojis?" I said, "Yeah, those silly little things. They're like cartoon characters. They mean nothing to me. They're just decoration." That was my answer. So she said, "No, they're not." I went home and I got I still remember because I wrote it in the book, 323 texts with emojis in them showing me how, hey, there's much more than you think. In fact, I was a little bit amazed at this because a lot of those texts involved romance. Never in my wildest imagination would I have shown a love letter to one of my professors in the 1960s. Never. I got them, which means that emojis have opened up a whole new dimension of emotivity that was previously suppressed, hidden, or kept private. It is now out in the open. We're expressing ourselves as openly as ever in the history of writing. So I looked at these and I said, there's much more to this than really literally meets the eye. And I started to notice a systematic use of emoji, much like the grammar of a language. So, I'll give you an example. Most of the text would end with a smiley. Not a heart to me because I'm a professor, right? That would have an implication that certainly nobody wants.
Sure.
But it did have a smiley. I had this one particular student who kept on sending me texts rather than emails. Fine. And would always end with a smiley. I became quite, how can I say, interested in this student. He was someone who had difficulties with language. He wasn't quite dyslexic, but he had characteristics that would be called dyslexic. So I would work with him and help him. And he really gained an awful lot of abilities during that period that he was in my classes. So I would take his messages. And one day he didn't put an emoji at the end. So what I did was instantly call him. And I said, "Something wrong?" In other words, the lack of that emoji communicated something that was not in the message. And in fact, he said to me, "Yeah, I'm a little bit down," and so on and so forth. The gist of it is that I learned that there's not only a systematic use of it, it's an age-based use. It would be silly for me to use emojis at my age, honestly. I'm 75. Heck, what am I going to... I'll get back to that.
I don't know. Because, Doc, this is the whole thing. By the way, our audience is going nuts over having you here because you're inspiring people. People are thinking back to, one of our audience members is talking about how she was able to learn Japanese by using symbols. Other people are talking about a return to hieroglyphic. I mean, there's a whole bunch of fascinating conversations. Many of our homegrown audience members love that you referenced one of the most well-known Edmontonians of all time, of course, Marshall McLuhan. But I wanted to ask you about stigma.
A professor of mine, by the way.
Come on, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Can I just, as a selfish question, can I take that path for a second? Can you take us into that classroom, what that was like? Did you realize at the time who you were learning from?
No. This was 1965. His book on understanding media had just come out, and it was I'll never forget this incident. He said, it's going to be reviewed by the Times Magazine or New York Times. I don't remember. So on the weekend, I actually got a copy of what the magazine was, and it just destroyed the book.
Ooh.
I mean, it trashed it. So we're in class the next day, with our heads down, very quietly. McLuhan comes in and says, "Did you people read that book, that review?" And we're going, "Oh, yeah, kind of, we did." He says, "I will be famous." I got noticed. I'll never forget that incident ever in my life.
Oh man, that's absolutely amazing.
And I talk about me not using it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not used to it. I wouldn't have the competence that is required by using it. I could probably develop it. I probably could, but I don't have the interest in developing it, okay? I have interest in seeing it, and I associate emojis now with personality, with character, and so on. So some people, in fact, you kind of supported this hypothesis, because some people say, "What's your favorite emoji?" Well, they're going to use that favorite emoji. It is kind of an icon of their own character and personality. I want to show you what I'm thinking, and therefore who I am. One last thing, and then honestly, I'll shut up. I promise I will shut up.
Please don't.
In looking at emojis overall, let's say philosophically, what I've noticed is that they add an element that probably wasn't there. They're also used for irony. People get at each other. They attack each other with emoji, and it's quite effective. At the same time, it's not as conflictual as language. If you show, I don't know, a face with a tongue sticking out is much less conflictual than "you're a jerk" about it. It does attenuate that aspect there. So it can be used nefariously. I mean, we are humans. But by and large, what emojis do is raise the positivity level of a message, of a written message, very high. When you see a smiley face, unless it's in an ironic context, it makes you smile. It makes me smile. And I'm kind of happy, literally, to see that smiley face. I should tell you that smiley face is not an invention of Unicode during the hippie counterculture movement, of which I was a part. The smiley was worn on T-shirts to indicate "make peace and love and smile, not war." It brings that subtext into the contemporary era. And my heavens, do we ever need that right now?
Oh,
believe me. And so
amen.
I think there's a very positive aspect to emojis. Sorry, I'll be quiet from now
No,
on.
stop it. You're just like, well, you're not just like me. You're way smarter than me. But I always get to this point at parties where I'm like, sorry, I'm doing all the talking, and people agree. People agree. Yes, you are doing all the talking, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody wants you to stop. You've got our full attention, and I have so many questions. And if I can just indicate in full disclosure here to our audience, we have not yet even got to the reason why you're here. I've not even got to the point of the story. You're just still setting the table for us. But I have so many. I mean, I have a story about how I almost got fired over tweeting 3 emojis. I'll tell it to you very quickly. The Alberta government had posted something about Pride and observing Pride. And without getting too into this, and you don't have to comment on this, but in my opinion and in my mind, the Alberta government had not earned the right to tweet what they tweeted about Pride. They had not been allies of that community. And so, this is while I was still under the employ of one of Canada's largest broadcast corporations, I simply responded to the Premier's tweet with 3 vomiting emojis. Now, I received a call from a senior vice president of this major billion-dollar broadcast corporation who asked me what the hell was going on. And I explained to him very quickly that this government had not earned the right to present itself as an ally to this community. He said, "You realize, to people that don't understand your dynamic or this relationship with the provincial government, it appears as though you are puking all over the Pride initiative." And I went, fair enough. Right? Fair enough. Emojis can come supercharged. I actually deleted the tweet. Of course, I then noted publicly why I deleted the tweet. I wanted people to clearly understand. But that's an example that resonates with me, where 3 puking emojis just about got me fired. Before, incidentally, I got fired a couple of months later anyway, so no big deal. But it's one person's story.
Yeah. Yes, no, they reveal so much emotion. They are so packed with it. It's strange to me because we don't draw them ourselves. They're provided for us. It's in their combination and their selection and their location within a text and the way you respond to written text, like your vomiting emotion. They really grab your attention. Really, I've never seen anything in writing like it. In alphabetic systems, we have invented, what are called prosodic features or exclamation points and things of that nature. They do not come close to expressing that emotivity that the emoji code does. The question that arises, and I'll just put this as a kind of footnote, and then you can go on to the questions you want to ask me, is that when we choose an emoji, we're probably not thinking, linearly or rationally. We're going to say, I said something here. How do I either reinforce it, communicate it more strongly? How do I organize the emotional part that I want with the textual linear part so that I, A, get the message across forcefully, B, do not destroy the intent of my message, but make it more smooth, and C, communicate what I am all about, what my personal subjective view on this is about. That's unique. Oh, you can do it in writing. Hey, you can. Absolutely. Poets are great at it. Novelists are great at it. Dramatists. But boy, you need a special talent, an ability, and you have to work at it, train for it. This comes naturally. And therefore, it's right there, literally at your fingertips to choose and use.
It's I want to get into this, like the stigma around it, and you talk about it as I can't remember if you said casual or informal, so maybe informal method of communication. But I think even we've within this last month added a wonderful new team member, Sarah. I remember I did not invoke emojis when I first started texting her. I remember the first emoji I sent her was a fist pound, which is probably I use it as a method of communication. I had a guy. Again, Doc, I'm bringing some supercharged examples to the mix. This is my real life. This is how emojis work into my real life. I heard from a prominent Jewish publisher the other day who had some concerns about a conversation I had with a couple of Palestinian Canadians. And he laid out his argument. I said, thank you for the feedback. And then the fist pound. We have a history of communication. He wrote back, actually quite agitated, said, no. Said no fist pound. Like, it actually pissed him off. And of course I meant no disrespect. To me, I've used that emoji as a way of like received, acknowledged, I'm on it, thank you. But in that situation, he perceived it to be offensive and inappropriate. That's his perception. I respect that. They are not appropriate in every circumstance. As a matter of fact, I would imagine with some people, utilizing emojis in communication may come across as completely unprofessional.
Not only unprofessional, but inappropriate as well. That doesn't mean that has to be in the professions. I'm going to get back to your fist pump in a minute let me get to it right now. There is research that shows that when you show an image of someone with a fist aimed at you in a message, your physiology reacts to it as if it were a real fist hitting you.
Interesting.
It's an ersatz. It's not real, but it's felt as if it were real. It's a strange feature of the human mind. I'm not a psychologist. I don't understand it, so I'm a messenger here. But you know what? It is true. Some of those emojis, you feel them strongly, a punch or I'm telling you, the smile. If the message to me, if the text message to me, I'm not on Twitter, so I don't get tweets, but I get text messages. If the text message ends with an emoji and it is a positive message, I will smile. It's like an osmosis. I don't have a word for it.
Yeah.
I don't know what to call it, but it works. I should tell you that I'm working right now with two doctors at the Massachusetts hospital. One is a radiologist, and the other one I'm not sure why. They contacted me because of my book, because they teach doctors, the online system of teaching today is is everywhere. So they correspond with their students with emojis. And they found that when they use emojis to impart certain concepts or notions, the reaction that they get is much more positive. And they assume that it is also much more effective in a learning way. So we're studying this right now. Can emojis, in other words, be used not just as communicative devices, but as learning tools? And you had mentioned this before, I think, if I recall. And also, and after all, visualizations, we do it with children. We always use figures and diagrams with children to help them understand things, grasp them visually. So if that is so, if our premise that emoji are learning tools in themselves by stimulating areas of the brain which are emotionally involved in the learning process, then they will migrate to other areas of human interaction and communication. I've looked at some of the data. It's an initial phase, but it is fascinating because it seems to say, yes, these are effective tools, and they're right there before us. So as a teacher, heck, I would want to use any effective tool at my disposal, and emojis seem to present themselves as such.
I love this. Is a really interesting note from Kim. Sarah and Sam and myself, all of us are nerds in a good way of varying degrees on things like the CP style guide. Anybody that's worked in media knows that Kim is referencing the CP. You can see Sam's got his CP style book on hand, ready to rock. We get into debates about grammar and sentence structure. Oh gosh, Doc, if you could hang out with us and hear the fun we could have really nerding out on this stuff. But Kim says, ultimately, as a professional communicator, she says she'd love to see the CP style guide reflect proper use of emojis. She says we can't ignore it. The use is here. What about this as a small world? Emily Renaud is the national coordinator at Canada Without Poverty. She was on the show yesterday as a guest talking about a national rural bus network. She's watching today as an audience member. She says, I had the honor of being in a class on youth culture taught by Professor Danesi. Such a great guest for this show. She tees up, you teach youth culture. A great question I saw from Kaylin. Kaylin's tuning in from Vancouver this morning. She says, I wonder if the professor could comment on the different emojis that are utilized by different age demographics. In other words, millennials versus Gen Z versus Gen X, and the use of different emojis. Have you dug into that?
No, I haven't, but I have a general comment on all of this. When emojis came on strongly onto the scene around, let's say, 2015, that was the year in which the Oxford English Dictionary chose the emoji face with tears as the important word, or whatever the term is, of the year.
Right.
It's hardly a word. It's an emoji. After that, emojis started to become diffused throughout the world. I did look at data that shows that some countries prefer some forms of emojis, others other forms of emojis, some countries not at all, considering it, there are some countries that see it as, a foolish thing of Western culture, whatever it is. Okay, so there are reactions throughout the world to this form of writing, but reactions to any form of writing have always existed from the beginning of time. So that is not new. But what I've noticed since 2015, and you mentioned, or at least you hinted at it, is that there is an evolution of emojis. Some have become what I call in my book a basic core grammar of emoji. So everybody probably uses smileys with different meanings, but smileys throughout the world. But very few people will use, say, I don't know, the golf emoji, or something that is so specific to a culture that it would bear no meaning beyond those who are in that culture. This means that it is, sorry for another academic term, that emojis have become an epigenetic phenomenon. They're not just standstill. They don't move in meaning. They are evolving constantly in meaning. And the form, therefore, is catching up with the meanings that are required of the new emojis as people use them. I did not expect that when I first wrote about them. Although I predicted it in the last chapter of my book that something is going to happen. Either they're going to disappear as the technology changes, and that is still likely, because when technology changes, so does writing systems, so does culture, so do cultural systems, etc. But on the other hand, if they are used continually, if writing is still there as a mode of communication in human beings, then they will evolve epigenetically. That is an amazing thing. They're hardly decorative devices. They are actual. They form a complementary language to oral language. See, when I'm speaking right now, I'm actually using words and combining them syntactically and organizing them according to the grammar of English, which has some universal aspects with the grammars of other languages of the world. But it's a grammatical choice. Together, coordinating vocabulary, coordinating discourse knowledge, also style. I'm trying to be a professor rather than, someone who is not. So my language is measured and so on. Now, with emoji, gone. It has its own grammar, its own stylistic characteristics, which transcends the grammar, vocabulary, and discourse styles of oral and written languages, bringing us closer together. That was the goal of Unicode, to eliminate the differences among languages and cultures and bring people together through this code. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because of the epigenetic aspect. In other words, when an emoji is used by someone, say in Canada, it may have one designation and one meaning. When that same emoji is used in Italy, and I know that a little bit better because I'm Italian and I taught Italian for many years, it has not completely different, but a significantly different usage and meaning that corresponds to how the cultural sense of smiling is in that culture. Right. That's what I mean by epigenetic. It's an adaptive code. It is not, it tries to be universal, but it isn't.
We still haven't got to the reason why we're talking today. I'll get to that in just a second. We'll get to that when we're good and ready, right, Doctor? I mean, we'll get to that when we're good and ready. I love this.
Please don't call me Doctor. Call me Marcel, please.
Hey, you earned the title. I'll invoke it. But sure, we could keep it more casual. I mean, we are talking about emojis after all. But it's funny you talk about how different generations may perceive it or how the usage may evolve. And one audience member simply submitted out of the fruits and vegetables category a peach, and then they said nobody uses that to represent a peach, Mom. So that gives us a good example of how these things can evolve. A lot of people making the point that it's important in the absence of face-to-face or in-person communication where there's no intonation or tone of voice. An emoji can be great, and I do this oftentimes as well, where you may want to you may want to tweet, especially I think from a relatively public position. If I engage someone in a public exchange, it may grab some attention, some of it underestimated if for example sarcasm is not adequately conveyed. In other words, I'm not trying to be a real jerk. I'm trying to be sarcastic, so I may throw in a little wink or something like that just to indicate, hey, listen, I'm not trying to start World War III here, but I do want to make my point.
No, that's exactly the whole purpose of my book, was that it adds this element. It allows us to express emotion that in a face-to-face situation and even in writing could lead to conflict. This attenuates the conflict somewhat. It could also, like you mentioned the punch thing, it also could really lead to conflict, or at least to a reaction to the conflict. But if I'm standing face-to-face to someone and I swear at them, it's a different reaction I would get than using an emoji that is intended to express my my displeasure at this person. So you're absolutely right. And this intuitive grammar is something that caught my attention when I looked at these 323 texts. I said, no, these are not random. These students are speaking a code, a language that they understand at an emotive, intuitive level, and it is a powerful, forceful one. And that I'm just learning but I would never be able to use it because at that time, this was about 2016, maybe to early 2017, I felt that I would have been entering into an age category that was inappropriate for me. I agree now that if I were ever to use emojis, it would probably be in such a way that it communicated with my peers, people of my own age, and expressor. They're doing it with me already. I have professors of semiotics, God help us, who send me emojis. Why did I say that? Because semiotics is about meaning. So my question is, what does it mean? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to trick me with this?
They're trying to put you in a full-blown wind wobble. So you just, you're rattled. But I mean, isn't it amazing, Marcel, that we really can overthink these? I mean, I hope, and I'm pretty sure I can say with confidence that my mom is watching right now. She tunes into the show live every morning, and I've even wrestled with this with my mom, who has always been expressive, and she's always been her and my dad. The gift of communication is very evident. My dad himself a poet, and my mom will write these beautiful messages to me, messages of encouragement, and I might be like just about to start this, or I might be just getting set to drive, or I might be strapping our little guy into his car seat. So I'll respond. I want her to know I've seen her message, but I respond with like 3 hearts, and then of course every single time 30 seconds later, I go, that was so insufficient. Like the 3 hearts is like, she took all this time to type this beautiful message about how her day's going or how she's thinking about us. And then I just bang, 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 and I really do. I mean, what you're reiterating to us is it saves us time. It helps us cut to the chase, but then we spend a whole bunch of time thinking about it, or at least some of us do.
Yeah. I want you to try an experiment with your mom. Send her a message without the hearts. See how she responds.
Yeah, she'll probably think something's wrong, like you said.
Got it. Yeah. She'll say, what's happened to my son?
Yeah, she'll call immediately. Hey, what do you say before we run out of time here? Why don't we get to the reason why we reached out to you? Because this is a really neat story. I had no idea that the Unicode Consortium was even a thing, but it oversees standardized language. You've alluded to it. Standardized language behind emojis, and there's a new collection coming with a variation, a very specific one, on the handshake emoji. And if any emoji were to be invoked in business or professional correspondence, perhaps it's this one, to indicate agreement or to indicate a deal. Here's what's changing. A total of 25 new possible combinations reflecting different skin tones, not just on the one, but on the 2 different hands that are interlocked, which to me is a beautiful, I mean, you can read so much into this. Where does your mind go when you see this evolution?
Oh, I love this kind of thing. Remember, I come from the counterculture era where love and peace and all the colors of the world came together. Yeah, got it. And, it reminds me a little bit of the colors of humanity of the Benetton, brand clothing, where they brought a lot of colors together. And this is really a way of showing today that we really are one world, and that the colors, our world is colored diversely, but that one symbol, bringing it together in the handshake, is a marvelous one. In the era of COVID, we've avoided using that symbol, that protocol of contact, which is not used throughout the world, by the way. So that even here, let's be careful, because in India they use namaste as a way of greeting rather than handshaking, which comes from the medieval period, as far as I can tell. So it shows that the world can be brought together through a symbol that grew up in a specific culture that has not had the greatest history of bringing people together in the past. So to me, it is wonderful to see this. I just love it. That one there is nondescript. It's yellow. It means nothing yellow. Yellow is a kind of a color of with very little meaning, maybe the color of the sun, the color of happiness. That says to me that different colors of humanity come together in a symbol, in a protocol that brings us together. It really is marvelous, really. I didn't know it existed until you told me about it, but I just love it.
Me too.
The question will be, will it last? Will it spread throughout the global village or not? It'll tell us an awful lot about ourselves. It's also an index, as semioticians call it, of where we're heading. If it doesn't spread, it's not good news. If it does, in my view, it's excellent news.
Before I let you go, we haven't even talked about GIFs or GIFs. The just the quick video, and this is a whole other method of communication. Everyone's seen the gal. I don't even know who she is. I should know who she is, but she's wearing a green shirt and she's spitting out her coffee. She laughs and spits out her coffee. I personally love Ray Liotta in Goodfellas, absolutely having a laughing attack. There are a couple, pretty great ones that I like. Everyone's got their own different ones. I think of Leonardo DiCaprio in The Great Gatsby extending his martini glass. Yep. Are we having the same conversation about GIFs as we are emojis, or is this a completely different conversation?
It's not completely different, but there is a difference in my view. The GIF is what distracts you a little bit more. It takes you away from the message and makes you focus on it. So when then you come back to the message, it loses something. Emojis do not do that. They are integrated with the message. It flows along with it. The GIF makes you stop and makes you look at things in an animated fashion. It is effective in that way. But if you think of it this way, if you put nothing but GIFs in a message, what's going to happen? It's going to clutter your mind. And you won't be able to reach the message fluently, or at least smoothly. Whereas emojis do not interrupt the flow of the message. They fit in with it and, in fact, reinforce its flow. I've called this in the past an emotive syntax. Sorry, again, for the academic term. In other words, it flows not according to the categories of grammar, but to the categories of feeling and thought, along with those of grammar. The GIFs take you a little bit away from that. Not much. At least that's my initial thought about it. I haven't studied it completely, but I might. Well, after this, I might do it.
Well, and if you do, and when you do, we would love to have you back. Next time, we'll book you for an hour. This has been absolutely fascinating. Doctor, whether he likes it or not, Dr. Marcel Danesi is the author of The Semiotics of Emoji, The Rise of Visual Language in the Age of the Internet. He's a professor of linguistics and anthropological linguistics at the University of Toronto, and will stand forevermore as one of my favorite all-time guests on this show. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I really enjoyed it.
Wow. When you can combine passion and insight and an ability to communicate those two, you have him. That's amazing.
Would you expect anything less from a linguistics? Like, he's got to be able to have a handle of language.
Like, he can get into the weeds. If you liked that interview, go ahead and smash the like button. The more times that you smash the like button for us on YouTube, the more times that you rate our podcast, the more time that you rank our podcast, the better it does. The more the algorithm is going to make sure that more people see and hear these interviews. So thank you to those of you that are doing that. The GIF versus emoji conversation is an interesting one too. And now people are starting to share what their favorite GIF is. And the funny thing is, you'd think, and I'll recognize that the majority of our audience downloads this on a podcast form, so they're just listening. But I guarantee you it doesn't matter, because when we talk about them, they're all going to be picturing the exact ones we're describing. Yeah. Right? Like one of our audience members, I don't have it in front of me now, but said, my favorite GIF is the one of the guy that walks up and unfolds the lawn chair. You know exactly what he's talking about, right? The dude that looks like he's from like Fubar or Trailer Park Boys. I don't actually know what that scene is from. I don't know what the majority of the GIFs are from that I use. Like the one of like the old, the guy with the big beard that looks like he's in the forest and he's doing the slow nod while it slowly zooms in. Did you know that's Robert Redford? Like, the one I'm talking about with the like logger guy, the big beefy logger guy that's nodding and smiling? That's Robert Redford. Had no idea. Or the one of, like I said, Ray Liotta and Goodfellas laughing hysterically. Do you know that one I'm talking about?
See, this is what is really interesting to me is the Robert Redford one I do know of.
Yeah.
The other ones, those aren't in my lexicon. Those
Oh my
aren't in my
gosh.
GIF lexicon.
Just look at how I respond to people that are calling me things like a right-wing shill or a left-wing libtard or whatever. That's always the one I throw back at them because I want to acknowledge it. But Professor's bang on. You can use emojis in a way that's like I said to the publisher that reached out the other day, legitimately making very serious comments about an interview we did on the violence in the Gaza Strip. I meant no disrespect. It meant quite the opposite of disrespect when I responded and said, I've received your message. Thank you. Boom. Like I'm on it. Fist pound, right? I would never use a GIF to respond to that. Ever. Would not cross my mind. So I do think there's a difference there.
I hear a segment here, so I'm gonna take this.
Well, yeah, and yes, and this is the magic of what you're doing is these conversations continue on the show. Like, did you see? Like, I saw Lauren, who deserves credit on our live chat, who just said, "Great job, Professor." GR, and then the emoji of the 8-ball. Great job. I mean, like, people just find ways to use it to tell stories.
I love that.
Right? I mean, I think of it, it's almost like in a way where if I want to respond to someone's hot take on politics or life, you know, 3 of the pure fire, like 3 of the fire emojis. That's my way. Instead of, hey, I really appreciated your take, and I think you nailed it. I think you made excellent points and, articulated it in a way that really resonated with your followers. No, man. 3 flames. Oh, man. Fascinating stuff. I love, of course, he took a class from Marshall McLuhan. What? We keep an eye on our hashtag RealTalkRJ, and it's a hashtag, of course, that's powered by the team at Park Power. You know that by now, and I probably don't have to tell you that if you check out parkpower.ca today and use the promo code 2021-RealTalk, they're going to knock $70 off your first bill. Commercial, residential, whatever, internet, electricity, natural gas, they've got you covered. Make sure you give them a follow on social media. Let them know that Real Talk sent you there. Make sure you use the hashtag so we see it too on their Instagram the other day. Tips on electrical safety in your home. These are great resources to have. Plus, of course, they operate local, they hire local, and they give back local by way of their profit-sharing agreement. You can see there their Park Power Instagram page. Give them a follow and check them out online at parkpower.ca. Our friends at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park are seeing more and more Real Talkers showing up at the drive-thrus right now because for the rest of the month of May, they're offering $1.99 peanut butter parfaits. If you're sitting here going, yeah, what are they going to do? Like these tiny, like half-size ones, these like lousy, like Real Talk versions. What are they like a third of the ice cream and like a couple of peanuts? Think again. Think again. When you order, you let them know you drop my name, Jespo. You let them know that you're a Real Talker at the ordering station. You know, right there at the speaker, you let them know you want a peanut butter parfait Jespo style for $1.99. They're going to hook you up with the layers of creamy vanilla soft serve, the rich, hot fudge. When we get a live studio audience, everyone's going to be ready to, I'm going to look over them and they're going to go, rich, hot fudge. We kind of do have it. Are you guys ready? Okay, so we've got the layers of creamy vanilla. We've got the rich, hot fudge. And of course, the peanuts topped off with Dairy Queen's trademark curl and red spoon. We have such a lousy time working here together on Real Talk.
It's awful. I hate it.
Brutal.
It's the puke face. It's the puke face.
It's the puke emoji. I had a great suggestion from an audience member that said, hey, that VP, that senior broadcast VP, you said you should have given him 3 of these. I thought, yeah, maybe that would have been a good emoji response to it. I guess ultimately I kind of did in a way. Dairy Queen's like, do you mind keeping your personal employment history out of our advertising read? The Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Parker, Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, Y Gardens, and Baseline Road. And a quick shout out as well, of course, to the team at Friesen Brothers. I don't have to tell you by now. Did you see, by the way, that our conversation on frozen potato skins is absolutely taking off online? All I did was mention that a guy by the name of Kyle stopped me on the street to tell me that I had to mention their frozen potato skins. I did not see this becoming editorial content for a full week, but it's resonated with people. These are like cult classics. Apparently turkey and tofu or the Alberta honey, or they probably wouldn't mind me talking about all the cinnamon buns and the smokehouse and the fresh sandwiches and the pizza station and the craft beer on tap. But the frozen potato skins apparently have ignited An entire province of Friesen Brothers loyalists who are letting us know how you integrate them into your summer barbecue feast routine. You can find out more at all 15 Alberta locations. For more than 65 years, Friesen Brothers has been Alberta grown and Alberta owned. I don't know where this next conversation is going to go. I spoke with this business owner yesterday. She's not just a business owner. She's a friend of mine, too. And she's, as a matter of fact, she's a bit of a big deal. She's a celebrated business owner because Justine Martinson, who owns a business in Edmonton called Lipstick Empire, has been busy. Hello, making her Real Talk debut. So good to see you here. You've been busy because you've been filling out. You've been having to respond to some nominations, and so you've been submitting some write-ups because you've been nominated as a top 40 under 40 in your home city. You've been nominated as a top 40 under 40 Canada nationally. But as you and I spoke on the phone yesterday, your business has been experiencing the highs and lows that thousands of other businesses have as well over these last 14 months or so. And it seems to me like, well, you hit a pretty significant point yesterday. Can you bring our audience into where you're at?
Sure. Hi, Ryan. Thank you so much for having me. I was fired right up yesterday. I'm fired up today. It's when I first came into this conversation today, my camera was sideways, and I thought that's a perfect depiction of the last 14 months. Everything is sideways. Like, it has been insane. And when I spoke with you yesterday, I said, last night, I was filling out my nomination packages for Alberta Women Entrepreneurs, for Top 40 Under 40 Canada, for Top 40 Under 40 Edmonton, and I am so grateful. But as I'm typing and I am like breaking the keys on my keyboard because I'm just angry and fired up, I'm writing about, how I have created careers in the beauty industry and in an industry that typically just creates jobs. So I'm writing about this. I'm writing about how I want to be a voice and a strong voice for the personal service and beauty industry and, just propel our industry forward and change some of those stigmas that are out there. And I'm writing this and I'm thinking, but look what we've gone through. And who's speaking up for personal service and who's talking about all these underlying issues and the holes that we're facing right now. And I thought, you say that you want to be this voice and you are this voice, so be that voice.
And so here you are. So here you are on the show. Now I know, because you and I spoke for a while yesterday, and I could hear it in your voice. I was like, I said it to you. I was like, it's like a mix of like power and despair. That was what I heard in your voice yesterday. And I know, because I've seen your business in operation, I know that, when we start talking, when we get into this conversation about shutdown measures and the impact of COVID on businesses, the conversation, and I know because I've been part of so many of them and I've facilitated many of them. And oftentimes it's been a choice. Like, when do we hear about businesses in the news these days? It's businesses that refuse to close. It's business owners that are being arrested. And you come to the point where you would believe that there are polarized ends where you're either troubled that Alberta has the highest ICU admissions in the province's history right now, that our ICUs are absolutely jammed, and that you're concerned about the health and well-being of people, or you're concerned about businesses and you're concerned about people losing their life savings and their livelihoods and the unemployment rates and the impacts on commercial real estate and everything else. And I know that you were, if I can say, you were concerned about having this conversation because I know you don't want to come across as somebody that's insensitive to or unaware of the public health implications of this.
Absolutely not. Like, that is not what I want here, because I just, honestly, I want everyone to do everything they can to keep everyone safe. I want to do everything I can to keep my staff and our customers safe. And we have done that. And my heart goes out to all of the healthcare workers. I understand the health crisis here, and my heart breaks. But I want to talk about, some other issues as well. And I don't want to negate from the fact that there's so many things that are happening right now. But this is my reality. And I've talked to so many business owners in my industry, and we're struggling. And Lipstick Empire as a business, we're doing exceptionally well when we're open, but this is our third shutdown. I've laid my staff off now 3 times. It is heartbreaking. I want to be the voice and I want to support others in my industry. So let's talk about it. Let's bring some things to life.
You told me, you said,
conversation.
You said yesterday, you essentially said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like you've already written the letter to the premier, right? And like how many letters is Jason Kenney getting? People CC us on a whole bunch of the emails. Like I can report he gets thousands a week.
Guy.
And I know that you've been in touch with elected political representatives. I know that there are business lobbies and there are agencies and organizations that advocate on behalf of business, but this is a personal conversation. Like I'm not trying to spin this that I don't know you. I'm not trying to pretend like you're not a friend of mine. I heard the tone in your voice yesterday and I said, I know that what you're saying is going to resonate with a bunch of people, but the audience is going to say, what's the point? What are you guys getting at? What's the call? I mean, what are you looking for? So take us into the reality right now of what this means. I mean, is your business, sorry to ask it this way, but are you at risk of losing your business?
I said this to you because I don't want to come across as arrogant in any way, but when it comes to my business, I have this is my life's work. This is my life's purpose. And this is my life savings, quite frankly. So my whole world has gone into this business. I started, my first business when I was 23 years old. And then I started this business at 27 years old with no partners. Okay. It is a female run business, small business with no partners. So I want to paint this picture because this is my world. Okay. So first shutdown, we are so concerned, obviously so concerned about, we want to keep everyone safe. We want to follow all of the policies and procedures. We put up our glass shield. We wear our PPE. We follow everything to a T. So in the first shutdown, and this is where the confusion lies, we were in phase 1. So it's like personal service. You were not essential. You need to shut down right away. Okay, we did that. Okay. 3 months we were closed. They laid off all my staff. We were scared, but I just drained my life savings. And thank goodness it was there. Now there was government support. There is government support. You just have to fit into a tiny little box. And as long as you fit into that criteria, you will get subsidy and you will get support. So that in itself was a huge struggle. And what I don't think people understand, because we don't talk about it, and that's why, is that it takes 3+ months to actually get your funding. And you have to pay, so for payroll, we were encouraged to bring all our staff back, but you actually have to pay out of pocket first, and then you get money back. And it can take quite some time. So for myself, I, had my business model was to have at least 3 months worth of income and worth of savings with nothing coming in. So that was my thing. That's not everybody's thing. That was my thing. People said I was crazy to hold that kind of money in my account, but I just knew I needed to save that for a rainy day. So what did I do? I drained that, but came back strong. So then we refilled that bucket. And then second shutdown, it's like, okay, now you're more important. Your industry, you know what? We like you. You make people feel good. You make people look good. You aren't going to be shut down in the first phase, but you're still going to be shut down. But we don't know when. So just hang tight. Okay. So then we're shut down, but you're doing everything right. There's no cases coming from your industry. Okay. Great job. You're spending so much money on PPE and you're doing everything right. Awesome. Okay. Boom. Shut down. 6 weeks again. Laid off my staff again. Okay, then I'm so grateful. Personal service, you can come back early because it's not you. It is not you. Come back early, you're good. So we came back early. So grateful for that. Started recouping some costs. Again, we have such a loyal clientele. Oh my gosh, our clients are our champions and they have made us feel so essential from day one. They always have, always will. We love them so much. But next shutdown. We're so confused. I did not see this one coming personally. And maybe that's my own ignorance and I chose to bury my head in the sand. This one hit me fast and hard. It really did. So we know how to shut down by this point. I laid off all my staff. I have 10 employees and contractors who are my world. They're my everything. They're my team. They're my family. 2 of them were supposed to go on mat leave within the next couple months. So they're on an early, forced mat leave because, by the time we get back, what do? You don't lay them off and then go on mat leave. It's, it just kind of throws off everything. So we keep a smile on our face and stay positive and okay, this is the reality.
So what do you need to happen? Like I can see, some people are chiming in right now and say, Rachel says, thank you for speaking the truth. And I know that you're speaking on behalf of business owners that are frustrated and it's brutal. Mm-hmm. And then of course, like Justine, we're not going to sugarcoat it or pretend like it's not a reality that we've seen a huge spike in COVID cases and the ICUs are jammed. And I know that you're, so people are going to go, well, what are you looking for? What would change? Where do you want the conversation to go? What do you want policy to look like?
Okay, I want some support. I want some clarity. I am not advocating for opening early. I will never go against what the government says. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying here. There is support, but you have to jump through hoops to get it. And I know any, business owner that's out there will know that little pending sign or symbol on the small and medium enterprise grant. That's the story of our lives. Everything's pending, and everything's up in the air. When will we reopen? When will we get our money? Will we survive? Will we come back from this? It's the anxiety. I just would love some clarity. And I know, and I'm not throwing darts at the government in any which way or form. They are, creating this playbook, and we're all trying here, but there are so many holes. And I just find we're paying out of pocket for our PPE. There is some funding, but it's not enough. I understand there's other industries that need support too. I want to be a voice that speaks up for my industry because I haven't heard one. And that's not okay. So some clarity, some support. Where can we go from here?
Yeah, people are writing in right now. Adventure Cycling writes in to say, for example, now you got to get an expert on the show, a fitness expert. They've been hammered during this. Yes. I know it's been really tough for gyms and workout facilities. And then I also know people are going to talk about, see, here's the problem. I almost find that in a conversation like this, I have to spend, I don't mean I have to, but I spend so much time reflecting what we might describe as an agreed statement of facts, right? Mm-hmm. COVID is a problem. We understand the science behind transmission, or at least we continue to explore that and listen to the experts, let me say. We were talking just the other day about aerosol versus contact transmission, all these types of things. But generally speaking, I think members of the public will say, because I'm seeing even some of the commentary right now, hey, listen, sorry, it sucks. It sucks for Justine. It sucks for other people. It sucks for gyms. It sucks for restaurateurs. It sucks for a whole bunch of folks. But also, it's a necessity right now. Like, we have to do it. And I just think, I don't blame somebody that's saying, I talked to an ICU doctor that's exasperated and overwhelmed and exhausted. And then I talked to a business owner, or to hundreds of business owners, just like you, Justine, who are at you're pretty even keeled today. But a lot of people, but for a lot of people, this has been nothing short of their worst nightmare. And people are losing their houses, people are losing their businesses, they're losing their life savings. And I guess all I'm trying to say right now is we can have a conversation. This can be a safe space for conversation where we acknowledge most of this audience, I want to say all this audience, cares about their fellow humans. We acknowledge that this is a health crisis. We also must acknowledge that a lot of people financially are getting absolutely hammered right now.
I know, and it breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart. And like I said, this is my situation. I'm speaking about my situation, being a small business owner. I want to be that voice for my industry that's like, we're always kind of just pushed aside. It's like, I understand that we need to be in this lockdown right now. But I want some clarity. It's like, how do we move forward from this? I'm so fortunate. I have an excellent business and an excellent business model. And for that, I have worked hard. And for that, I am so, so proud. Yeah. We're going to come back strong like we've done the past 3 times. We're going to come back with a vengeance. We have a wait list of over 300 people. Can't wait to come back safely, and we will roll that out so everyone is safe, everyone is taken care of. But my staff, who this is their career, this is their livelihood too, I cannot wait to get them back to work. But what's hard for me here is I guess I just don't understand why we're pushed aside, and why our industry, because it's our job to make people look good, feel good, why we are we're deemed so.
Well, I think I know why. Well, I don't know why, but I think I might know why. And I think it might be because it's and actually, Justine, I don't even know if this is because I think even elective surgeries have been canceled. In some cases, they're not even elective surgeries. Like people's cancer surgeries that may be categorized or qualify as elective or non-emergency surgeries have been bumped down the road. And quite frankly, I think that people probably, can I just say it, probably lack sympathy. Like, oh, you can't go get your beauty treatments done. Oh, you can't whatever, right? I mean, people can't go get their hair cut. Right? There would be a lack of sympathy there where people would say.
And there's a stigma, of course. And it's a luxury. It's considered a luxury service. And I get that. But what I was saying about our clientele and our customers is that they know how essential we are. They have expressed how essential we are. For a lot of people, it's their only reprieve.
Sure.
It's their only time to get out of the house, to get away, to not think about all the crazy stuff that's happening in their world. We are therapists. We're caregivers. We are so much more than, just skin deep. So it's just, we've created our monthly membership program, which people come in once a month, and it's just for them. It's their time. They get to breathe. They get to escape. That does wonders for your mental health.
Justine, first of all, well, not first of all, but let me just say, I'm proud of you. Your nominations as top 40 under 40 nationally and locally are very well deserved. I have no doubt that you're going to see your way through this. I don't mean that in a way that's just sort of like you'll be fine. I'm not saying it like that.
You'll be okay.
But if I know anybody, if I know determination, I know it's all over your face right now. And I know you're speaking on behalf of a lot of people. Here's the thing. You and I, we knew we were not going to solve it today. But this is a conversation. It's important for people, I think, to hear themselves represented. It's important to have these conversations to make all of us think and to really sort of chew on the policy we see in front of us and determine whether or not we think it's appropriate. Thank you for taking the time to speak out today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
You got
Take care. Have a great day.
Justine Martinson. You can find Lipstick Empire on Instagram. This is Alex is absolutely correct on our live chat saying it's not just business owners getting financially hammered. Everybody's going to be in it. Do we even need to start? I mean, do we want to start talking about right now about debt and deficit and repayment and federal budgets over the next 15 years? I mean, do we even want to? I would rather not. We were talking about emojis and gifts and everybody was happy and positive. The last thing I want to do is start talking about repaying $1 trillion. I wonder if that's just going to be a yoke around the neck for the next, and everyone's just going to go, well, that was back to 2019 to 2021, man. That's what that was. I mean, it's just, there's going to be such a reality there for people. Why don't we get into this and talk about this? Because Sarah, I know you have an update on kids going back to school, more of a local story here for Albertans. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Let me remind you that the team at Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge right now, if you're getting into the summer season and you're realizing maybe you've got a bike trailer you're looking to pull, or one of those pop tents, maybe it's an SUV you're shopping for, or heck, maybe you're looking for a new rig to pull your fifth wheel. It's going to be tough shopping these days. The fact of the matter is, and they're not trying to hide it at these Dodge dealerships, selection's lower than they'd like. It's a manufacturing reality. The microchip market is really facing shortages right now, and it means that while they might have 400 or 500 trucks on their lot, they've got like 100 of them right now. But here's the thing. Nobody has more than Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. Plus, the two dealerships under the same ownership group are able to share inventory. So you have double the selection, plus all that great service that they've been known for years and years. At Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge, Alberta's best selection of Jeep and Ram. You can go plus, by the way, the other day I was in there at St. Albert Dodge. Have you heard of the Dodge Demon? Have either of you heard about the Dodge Demon?
I have not.
I'll put it on my Instagram story today. You can follow me on Instagram at Ryan Jesperson. The Dodge Demon is the fastest production car in human history. It's got 800 plus horsepower. They have a Dodge Demon at St. Albert Dodge right now up for grabs. I don't know if I want to say what they're selling it for because I'm not the salesperson, but
I feel like we need a.
it's out of my price range.
Fair enough. I really feel like we need to have a, what's his name from Home Improvement? Tim Allen?
Tim the Toolman Taylor?
Yeah, that's what we need when you start talking about that kind of horsepower.
The Dodge Demon with the rear slicks and 800 horsepower. And and then we could have you like behind the fence.
Yeah.
Just with your eyes showing. I should probably not. Yeah, oils. There you go. What was his name? Al, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Al?
No, Wilson was the name.
Wilson.
Al was the assistant.
Al was the assistant.
That's you, Sam. You're Al.
Was Home Improvement
I get to
like
be Al.
was that a formative
A
show?
big favorite of mine. I think I was just the I was the right age of young boy when that show was a hit, and I loved it.
So I guess what we're getting at here is the new slogan, Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. Ha, ha, ha. It's a good thing they advertise on a show, not a billboard. That'd be a lousy billboard campaign. You'd have to explain it all. Westworld Computers has a fully authorized Apple service department that trained technicians with more than 40 years of experience can upgrade or fix any Apple product from your Mac, your iPad, your Apple Watch, your iPhone, whatever it is. They've seen it all. You can book your appointment for service at westworld.ca or, of course, call one of their trained Apple service advisors. You can find the link to their website on ours, ryanjesperson.com, under the sponsors tab. While you're there, ask about their Apple Trade-Up program. They give the highest values for your trade. They'll even transfer your data to your new Apple product in complimentary fashion. I'm just trying to think because I do have one of those old iMacs. The orange one I was telling you about.
I want it.
From 1996, 97, I think I got it. I wonder what the trade-in value of that would be. Is it like when you start, like when a car is like old and loses its value, but then it becomes a classic and then the value starts to rise? Is my old iMac worth like $6,000 now?
Well, I don't know about $6,000. I don't have my hand on the pulse of the secondhand iMac market. But
It's probably not $6,000.
I would classify that as a vintage piece of equipment and should be treated as such.
Oh, absolutely. What would you do with it?
I would probably find a way to. I'd either just put it on display or I'd mount a modern monitor in it so I could keep the shell but still use it as a monitor.
Could we do that?
Yeah, sure.
We could
have it
put
on in the background.
We could have a modern monitor inside the body of the old iMac.
Okay, let's chat after the show.
Wonder
I
if-
think I can make that happen.
Let's take this offline.
No, let's waste everyone's time talking about it for the next 20 minutes here on Real Talk. Shalane says it's looking like my kids are going to be back in school on Tuesday after our conversation with Justine Martinson. Right now, a lot of people are saying, kids should not be going back to school next week. This is, I suppose, a matter of opinion, personal opinion. You hope that the government's making these decisions based on informed opinion and public health. Sarah, what are the details we're keeping an eye on?
Oh, boy. This is a tricky one. Yes, Tuesday, so after the long weekend. It's looking like there will be return to school. So schools are scheduled to return to in-person learning on Tuesday.
This is province-wide for all of Alberta, is that right?
For most schools, yes. May 25th. The ATA, Alberta Teachers Association, says that they feel that students and staff and schools need to be better protected from the risks associated with COVID-19. That's from the president of the ATA. The really interesting thing, which people are kind of, humming and hawing over, is that Dina Hinshaw, she said that moving to at-home learning was an operational decision, and that was made to around staffing and isolation challenges. So saying that that health risk isn't necessarily a concern. She said, I don't believe there to be a public health risk in bringing children back to school. And that's where the ATA definitely is.
Are you a little surprised that they're bringing kids back? You're bringing them back with 3 weeks to go. I mean, I know first of all, it's a huge disruption for a lot of parents. I mean, our household included. Carrie's whole kind of weekday structure just went bam. And I know that obviously thousands of other people's did as well. So some parents are probably eager to see their kids back in school. Other people are probably going, we were hearing from people, we're getting emails and tweets from people that are saying, they figured that when the kids were sent home a couple of weeks ago or last week, whenever it was, that was it. That was it for the year.
Yeah.
Are you a little surprised?
I'm shocked.
Yeah. It just seems, I don't know. It seems, I don't know. I'm not the education minister. It just seems counterintuitive.
But we're just on the downswing. Like, we just are starting to get this spike that they talked about under control. And now we're going to send the kids out, and there's variants. They're like, the variants are coming in hard and fast. So,
and as we were talking to Justine, I saw some people saying, "Hey, we got to learn our lessons. Our shutdowns haven't been real shutdowns. Our lockdowns have not been real lockdowns, and we are so eager to reopen. And I get it. I understand it. Like, I was telling you about my pal Blair, and he and his business partner Sal. They're digging it. Everyone's running. Not everyone. A lot of people are running on lines of credit now, and they're way deeper into their lines of credit than they're accustomed. Like 6 figures. Some people 7 figures or more. In a position where typically they would have had a surplus, their business would have had savings, and still patios were able to be open, and so they're investing in building out their patio infrastructure to try to glean some revenue, and then patios are shut down. So then they're, and this comes back to the $8.50 2x4s that they're using to build these things and the whatever. But then at the same time, well, what the hell do you want, right? COVID cases are going out of control. The variant cases are going out of control. The ICUs are full. Nobody's going to complain about that. I think the optics were really bad on a lot of the patios. I think a lot of the patios were not opening in the spirit of what was intended. And I think that many law-abiding and parameter-respecting businesses in hospitality were probably royally ticked off at some of the other businesses that were cramming their patios as quickly as they could. And I understand why. Because if you have a chance, it's 25 degrees for our American friends. It's a decent day. It's like 70. It's like 80 for the first time in a while. And all of a sudden, you're, as a business owner, going, I could have a $6,000 day today. I could have a $7,000 day today. So, of course, you're going to do everything you can. Or maybe you brought in $4,000 worth of inventory into your fridges and your freezers, and you need to get rid of it. And you'd love to sell a few more Santa Fe salads than you might normally sell. And so you pack your patio, and then what happens? Then the whole shebang gets shut down again. And, you think realistically, and I'm not coming at this from a position of like, I think I know better than this, that, and the other, but I just look around anecdotally at the jurisdictions in the world, and there are a lot of factors at play. But the jurisdictions in the world that have been able to reopen in meaningful fashion, in other words, right now, they're having full-blown music festivals and restaurants are wide open and everybody's hanging out. And it's because they legit shut down for an extended period of time. Everybody felt pain for a while, and then it was done.
Precisely. And I mean, we talked to the epidemiologist last week talking about that, we're not an island, but he said, you can make an island if you have substantial lockdown, real lockdown. And I mean, Justine, our last guest, definitely touched on all of this push-pull, this open, closed, less. I definitely called that to my attention, saying this is exactly the point. If 7 weeks would have done it, and we could have stamped this sucker out.
So here we are, and we're kind of guilty of like woulda, coulda, shoulda. But at the same time, I think it's important. Did you see there's calls for these government responses, federally, provincially, will be audited. I mean, there will be reports, there will be investigations. Auditors General will take a look and will evaluate how governments did. I acknowledge that governments at every level, mayors, premiers, the prime minister, the president of the United States, chief medical officers of health have been in an impossibly difficult position. It's been an impossibly difficult year. Leadership has exhibited itself or has been devoid in different fashions, in different contexts. It's not been an easy job for anybody.
Fair, but like if we're saying, okay, we can't turn back the hands of time. We can't go back to March 2020. Fair enough. But now we are looking at schools reopening. Have we not learned anything from the last 12 months? So this is where I'm kind of like, okay, fair. We can't turn back the hands of time, but we can take our lessons and move forward in an informed manner.
Yeah. Ashley is still hung up on Home Improvement. Ashley chimed in to say that she had the biggest crush on JTT. Even I know that is Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Oh, me too.
Whatever happened to Jonathan,
gosh.
to JTT? Is he still doing a thing?
You're doing a hard Google right now.
I'm doing a Google search on JTT. What does it give me? It gives me Jonathan Taylor Thomas. It looks like Oh my gosh, the Google search, the suggested search, which home improvement kid died? Earl, what? I don't think, anyway, I don't know. Why did I do that live? That was weird. Vice has a story at vice.com in 2019. What happened to Jonathan Taylor Thomas? What happened to Jonathan Taylor Thomas? Interesting. We can read that. The once ubiquitous star of home improvement in The Lion King. That's right. He was Simba in The Lion King.
Right.
Vice investigated. Okay. Well, you can read hard-hitting journalism there. And then also some critics online. Like who was it here? M. Wareham is very critical of my Tim the Toolman Taylor's. Says the impression was just like a chain-smoking seal who's just given up the habit. A chain-smoking seal that's just. Okay, I need to channel a seal first. No, actually, because that was the other home improvement sound effect. The kind of that one.
Yeah. It was a series of expressive grunts.
It was expressive grunts.
Yeah.
So a chain smoking seal. I won't continue to pollute your podcast feed, everyone.
Good radio, folks. Good radio.
It's nothing but the best. It's nothing but the best here on Real Talk. I would imagine that when word spreads that we're doing live impressions of animals, chain-smoking animals that have given up the habit, more and more people will flock to the program, which means it's probably a great time to mention a couple of the partners that keep the show going. The team at Eden Landscaping had advised us to keep Sherry the cherry tree out of the ground until the inevitable May snowfall happened. Well, once again, the phenomenal, incomparable, time-tested team at Eden Landscaping was right. They were right again. They've been right time and time again, translating your dream into reality. If you want to see evidence of it, you want to see proof of it, check out their website, landscapeedmonton.ca. You'll be able to see some of the projects that they've been working on, bringing their clients' outdoor spaces to life. You can, of course, check out the website if you want to get in touch with them, or you can follow the link on our website, Sponsors tab at ryanjesperson.com. Eden Landscaping's team loves to solve problems. I was talking to Mike over at Eden a while ago. He said, it's okay, Zed, I don't mind if you tell Real Talkers problem solving's our jam. I said, you're going to get some really tough challenges. He said, I love it. It's what they do at Eden Landscaping. The team at Kubi Energy, proudly presents Positive Reflections. Boy, were a bunch of you commenting on this week's edition. You can find it as a standalone file to share. If you want to infuse a little positivity into the life of a friend or a family member, maybe even change the course of your own day, you can find those in their own separate category on the Ryan Jesperson, the Real Talk YouTube page. Kubi Energy has Tesla-certified installers, journeyman electricians, and electrical apprentices working across Western Canada on small residential installations all the way up to huge industrial ones. You can check out more at kubienergy.ca. The team at Local Waste wants us to remind you that they love to talk trash. That's right. They love to talk and earn your business. A lot of you, they know, have been working with the big multinational garbage companies. Typically, they're going to try to oversell you on what you need, right? You've got the big, huge bin. Let's be honest. You're not filling it every week, but you're paying for it. You're paying for the big one. Local Waste is based on integrity. It's a core value. And they want to grow your business with you, grow the relationship along the same way. You can check them out online, localwaste.ca. And don't forget, coming up on Friday, Local Waste presents Trash Talk. You can send your email with the subject line Trash Talk to talk@ryanjesperson.com. You got something you got to get off your chest. That's how you can make it happen. And just like that, 2 hours is up. An absolutely amazing show. I'm going to go back and watch that emoji interview again. That's a sign of a good one. One that just encourages us, inspires us. I absolutely love it. Wanted to let you know, coming up on tomorrow's show, he's now an independent MLA. That's right. After being booted out of the United Conservative Caucus, Drew Barnes is going to join us coming up on the show. We're going to ask him what this means for his political future. What does this mean for the future of conservatism in Alberta? Maybe not just his journey, but bigger picture. How many more does he see maybe leaving the party on their own accord? Anybody? Anybody? We'll go there, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for making today's show a part of your routine.
They're gonna